A few times a year, I sit down with sellers on the Space Coast or in Satellite Beach who have already spent $30,000, $40,000 on renovations to get their home ready for the market before we even have a conversation. And sometimes that money was well spent, sometimes it wasn't. The truth is, in this market, a $100 report can do more for your sale than a brand new kitchen. And I'm gonna show you what actually moves the needle for Space Coast buyers and what you can probably skip. Hello everyone, I'm Lourdes Sliwa, a local real estate agent here on the Space Coast that work primarily in Satellite Beach and Near Harbor Beach and the other beach towns. And today we're gonna go over one of the most common questions I get from homeowners who are thinking about selling. What should I actually do to this house before I put it on the market? And I wanna give you a real answer, not generic national advice, because Satellite Beach and the Space Coast is different than other markets. Buyers here are calculating insurance costs, looking at roof age. They're factoring in what is it going to cost them to own this home long term. Does the house have impact windows? Does it have shutters? How much is insurance going to cost? So what moves the needle here isn't always what the renovation blog says. So now let's talk about the national data first before we dive into Space Coast and Satellite Beach specifically. Every year a report called the Cost versus Value Report comes out. It tracks the return on investment for 28 different home improvement projects nationwide, and the results always seem surprising to me. For example, last year in 2025, the single highest return on investment was a garage door. That's according to the Cost versus Value Report, and it wasn't a kitchen, it was a garage door, not a bathroom, but a garage door. It returned 268% of its cost at resale. You spend about what, $4,500 or $5,000, and it can add up to over $12,000 in perceived value. A steel entry door and a manufactured stone veneer, although I don't really care for it, each their own, both came in right behind, it also returning more than double their cost. Now, here's the part most sellers don't want to hear. A full gut renovation kitchen, although we enjoy it and we love it for our homes, is not going to give you what the money that you spend on it. It's probably only give you about 38% or 51% of its cost. So if you spend $80,000 in a kitchen, you might see $35,000 of it back. So you hopefully will really enjoy it. Now, your kitchen still matters though. There's a smarter version of doing things when you're thinking about kitchen investment that is gonna get you the most money back. And I'll get to that in a minute. The biggest point to this is that buyers respond to upgrades that signal condition, quality, good maintenance, and low future costs. Not the most expensive renovations. And in Florida, there's a whole other layer to that. The national advice misses completely. So what is different about Satellite Beach or the Space Coast? Before you spend $1 on anything, here's the upgrade most sellers overlook that costs $100 and can change what a buyer is willing to offer. Buyers here are running insurance quotes before they even make offers. That changes everything about what you should be upgrading and what you should be doing to your house. The single most important value driver on the Space Coast market is roof condition. Because under Florida statute, insurance companies can require a full roof inspection once a roof hits 15 years old. A lot of private carriers won't write a homeowner's policy on a roof older than 10 years old, whether it's leaking or not. So buyers who are financing need insurance as a condition of their loan. So an aging roof that creates insurance problems can stop a sale even before it starts. And I'm not saying that you need to replace the roof if it's old. What I'm saying is that you need to know what you're working with before a buyer's inspector finds it. And that's a whole different conversation. A 4-point and a wind mitigation inspection can cost you about $100, $150. And it takes about an hour or 2 hours, and it's valid for 5 years. What this does is document your home's wind-resistant features for the buyer's insurance company, and that lowers the insurance premium the buyer gets quoted. Lower monthly insurance costs change what buyers can comfortably afford. If you already have impact windows or a reinforced garage door and you don't have a current wind mitigation report, you are leaving money on the table. Pay the $100, make the phone call, it will be worth your while. So now let's talk about the cosmetic upgrades that actually return. We're talking about fresh neutral interior paint, which is one of the highest return investments a seller can make. It makes spaces feel clean, well taken care of, larger, and move-in ready. And it removes bold accent walls or dated colors that buyers don't really like. A buyer will skip looking at a house that has a red wall, for example, which is the craziest thing because it's not that expensive to paint. But that's just the buyer's mindset. So a full interior to repaint your home is probably about $2,000 to $8,000. And it consistently returns more than it costs. Here are some other cosmetic things to think about. Exterior paint and pressure washing. The exterior is what buyers see first in person. So a faded paint, especially the front door, or a dirty driveway, overgrown landscaping, those things tell a buyer that the house hasn't been looked after, that it hasn't been maintained. Here's one for Satellite Beach folks that is a clear turnoff, is the rusted door handles. We know that the salt air is a killer here, but you don't want to make it obvious to the buyer. New door handles, new paint on the faded front door, pressure wash, that can change the first impression. It's just for a few $100s. Landscaping, when we're talking about landscaping, keep it simple and tidy. It beats elaborate every time. Trim the hedges, edge the lawn, add fresh mulch, pull the dead plants. A yard that looks like work could be a turnoff to most buyers because they don't want to do the work. Now here's something interesting, because what you do inside requires a very different calculation depending on your price point. So what I would advise a seller that has a $700,000 beach home is not the same advice that I would for a $450,000 satellite beach home. And that is where sellers can get it wrong. What works at most price points is new hardware and fixtures, cabinet pulls, faucets, light fixtures, low cost, strong visual impact. Repaint or refinish the cabinets instead of replacing them. Now, I would recommend highly that you get an expert to paint the cabinets. You don't want them to chip or look like, well, you did it yourself. You want them to look like they're polished and almost brand new. You could also update countertops if the existing ones are worn, but make sure everything is clean, functional, and well lit, whatever you do. Here's what doesn't work. A $30,000 kitchen renovation in a $450,000 home. It rarely comes back in full. Buyers at that price point know what the market offers, and an overrated renovated kitchen can actually look out of place rather than a premium. They rather have clean and functional major components such as the AC or the water heater or the roof, for example. That is what's most important to the mid-range buyer. And same goes for bathrooms. A mid-range bathroom remodel returns about 80% of its cost. An upscale overhaul returns closer to 42%. So think target updates, not full replacement, unless something is really broken or so dated that buyers is going to be a complete turnoff. Almost before every offer, or even before a buyer steps foot in the door, they're asking about the systems, the major systems. So get your HVAC serviced and have the service record ready for the buyer. Leave it in your home. In Florida heat, the AC age is a real cost consideration. And if the AC is going to have to be replaced in a couple years, that could be a turnoff for a buyer. So if you have an older AC, but it's well maintained, that helps. If the AC is at the end of its life, like one of my current listings that was actually 20 years old, I couldn't believe that, replacing it actually costs less than the credit you'll negotiate after inspection. The seller only paid about $7,600 for that AC. And if a buyer would have come in and saw the 20-year-old AC, they would have wanted like a $20,000, a $16,000 credit for that AC. So he actually got off at half of what he would have had he had to negotiate after the offer on the AC. Same goes for the water heater. Anything over 10 years old will come back at an inspection, especially if it's rusted. And replacing a water heater is relatively cheap. I had one of my clients recently replace theirs because it was rusted and they came up in the pre-inspection, and the water heater was like $1,000. So it wasn't a huge deal, but again, if you have to give the buyer credit after the fact, it's probably going to cost you double or triple that. So what if your home was built in 1960s or 1970s, which a lot of the satellite beach homes are? Inspectors will look at the electrical panel because for insurance purposes, some electrical panels are not allowed. And also they'll look at the plumbing because there's known issues with the plumbing as well. So if you know these issues before listing, it's always cheaper than post-inspection credits. Almost always. Here's the bottom line. A new roof, a wind mitigation, fresh paint, clean landscaping, a serviced AC will do more for satellite beach sales than a kitchen renovation anytime. Know your price point, know what your buyer is actually calculating, and don't spend money on things that don't come back. If you want advice on what to do for your list, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to help. And this was helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with somebody who's thinking about selling, and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.